sound speeds, and welcome to another reaction video. I am slowly but surely making my way down through the list of videos that viewers have submitted to me to react to. And this video is on that list, so let's waste no time and get right into it. Pasting in our incognito browser. And, geez, that is loud. 44 minutes? Hold on one second here. Dismiss that. All right, he's holding a boom pole. No. I wasn't submitted a timestamp or anything like that. There's no way in the world we're going to react to a 44-minute and 42-second long video. Sorry, this one's off the table. All right, so let's try this one again. All right, let's see what this one is. Okay, Ranger 7 Studios currently has 1.23 thousand subscribers. This video has 117 upvotes, and it has 6.6K views and was released 2 years ago. What is the actual date? November 15, 2021. So it's almost, well, it is 2 years old. Okay, so this video here, he's talking about his wireless boom setup. Okay, let's waste no more time yakking about it, and let's watch.
Hello world, Stephen Michael Zach here, and today I'm going to show you how to build a wireless microphone boom pole. Now, first off, I am not a sound man.
That's a great way to start off a sound related video when you're teaching sound stuff. Say, I'm not a sound guy. Why don't you just, never mind. Let's see what he has to say.
So, full disclaimer, I am a director, I am a cinematographer.
Okay, cinematographer, the job that usually, if any, will have no interest in listening to anything. And a director, they will say they care about sound. Usually, though, they'll prioritize picture over it like 99.999% of the time because it is more expensive for you to get a shot in the can, and it's more expensive to actually fix it in post. So many directors that are sound friendly, they will not sacrifice their picture over sound if it means getting a shot.
I am a special effects artist, but I do run...
Special effects is also extremely noisy as well.
My own film. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at what we'll be using. Now,
it looks like he has a K-Tech boom, and then he has, what is that? A newer style? Leaks Pro, something like that. Those knuckles seem to indicate to me that it's more of a, like a monopod, tripod type leg. Those are the knuckles that almost look like the Leaks Pro video that I reviewed a while back. Very discount, like plastic on the outside. But, you know, hey, I don't know what he has. The K-Tech aluminum Avalon pole, that screams to me. I mean, I'm very familiar with that. That's a good pole for the price.
First off, we will be using the Rode Wireless Go 2.
Okay, so that system there is extremely light. Being that he is making a light boom pole system, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're using that, it's going to be probably lighter than the copper inside of a cable running it down through. The cable that he's using here is internally coiled cable on this boom pole. So that means there's going to be, you see that little extra part that sticks out right there? That is an exit address. That's an XLR exit. So that means that you can plug something directly into the side of that, and you have a coiled cable that goes through that boom pole all the way up to the tip. Now, because of that, the weight of that copper might probably weigh more than the Wireless Go. So if it were me, I would say you have the microphone on this end, plug the Wireless Go system into the microphone in. That way you have a very short cable. Like this cable here is going to be way too long to go into something like this. So I would say try to get all your weight and stuff like that right in there. So you should use a microphone that is self-powered as well if you're going to use the Wireless Go. That way it powers itself and then just sends an output to the Wireless Go. So something like the the Rode NTG, does that self-power? The Deity VMic D3 Pro, any of the Rode like NTG2, 4 Plus, something like that self-powers itself, that you could just take a cable that goes straight out XLR into something like the Rode Wireless Go system. That's going to mean that you don't have to supply phantom power for anything. So that's going to help you out quite a bit. Also, if he's using the Go system, he's probably going to be talking about making a wireless recorder backup. So that way you can record straight from the transmitter, and that way you have a good good signal, I should say, because this is a 2.4 gigahertz system. So anytime you transmit, you could end up running into interference. In another video, I think I talked about, I think it might have been the BPTRX Deity review that I did. I talked about how I looked up the FCC specs on this device, And I think it transmits at like 3.65 watts. And if that's the case, you're not going to have as much transmit power to punch through a lot of RF on set because you only have like 40 channels of BLE protocol, potential 2.4 gigahertz channels. So if you start to get too far away from your receiver, you're going to have issues. But the system here records and transmits at the same time. I don't know if that's a Zaxcom violation of their patent, but if I were to guess, and I did hear a rumor about this, I have not verified it, that Zaxcom is approaching Rode and telling them that they cannot transmit and record at the same time in America because they own the patent on that. It is something that if you have a patent, you're required by law to defend it. Otherwise, you could lose it. So let's see what he has to say.
System. Now, yes, Mr. Soundspeeds, I know it's a 2 system.
So he addressed me by name. It's as if he knew I was going to be watching this video. That caught me by surprise. That's, All right, he also said, I know this is a 2.4 gigahertz system. Let's see what he has to say. Because if he is addressing me by name, then he's probably knows what I'm going to say about it. Let me hear what he says.
But I have used these on many professional jobs, and they have never failed me. So unlike some other products, anyway.
Okay, so he's probably talking about the Kinect system. Definitely not the Theos. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, hey, if it works, it works. And he probably also is recording on the transmitter itself, creating a backup as well, which you can do on the Theos system, on the BPTRX system. Maybe not at this time because they might not have had that patent licensed just yet. I think they had 5 patents licensed from Zaxcom.
Which oddly enough I'm using right now to record this video. But
is that the Pocket system?
This is what we're going with.
I don't know.
This is what I have right now. Now, normally you would want to use a UHF system, but
oh yeah, this is definitely like the Theos.
Next, we need our microphone, and for that, I am using the Audio-Technica AT875R.
Okay, that is a really good microphone. It's like $150 right now as of the time of this video. I bought one on an impulse buy from a live stream, and I used it for a while. It was actually surprisingly good for the price. The one thing he's going to run into, though, is that it requires cell power. It requires phantom power as opposed to being cell powered. So it's going to be like an issue at that point if you're trying to supply phantom power to it. And so he's got to supply... put an extra weight on the system in order to, I'm going to stop him for a second. It's going to supply extra weight trying to phantom power that microphone. So it may be a light microphone, but depending on what you put on it to supply the phantom power, it could end up weighing it down. So just be aware of that. It's better to get a cell-powered microphone if you're going to use a system that does not supply phantom power to your microphone.
Shock mount here off a microphone stand. So.
Okay. All right. Here's what I'm going to tell you also. The shock mount he just showed right there, I'm going to back up a little bit here. Let's see. He holds it up. You see how it has these little elastic bands on there? Those elastic bands on these discount shock mounts are usually garbage. They're usually like high gloss. They're not very good rubber. They're overly stiff. The ones that you want to get are extremely soft, and they have the ability to supply just enough weight to properly hold your microphone. A lot of times, if you buy something like an M5 PSC shock mount, that is designed for a microphone. It's going to be rubber that's going to also absorb some of that vibration. The big thing about a shock mount, many people that put together discount systems, they buy a cheap shock mount. And so that means that if you have any kind of handling noise on the boom pole itself and you're touching it, and you're making any kind of vibrations there, it's going to go directly through into that shock mount and the microphone's going to pick it up. So a lot of people that complain about handling noise on their discount systems is because your shock mount is garbage. That's straight up the way it usually is. So I would say if you're going to buy yourself a discount system, spend more money on a proper shock mount to make sure that it's going to actually absorb vibrations. And if you do get something like this, there may not be something wrong with the design if you replace out the bands in it. So you can buy yourself some softer bands. Usually if you get yourself something that smaller bands itself as opposed to longer ones, you'd have to double up. If you got smaller bands and they're more rubbery, then you can replace them on something like this. And it's going to be better than those kind of like nylon coated, like really weird. Like if you overstretch them, they kind of hold their stretch to a certain degree. Get a good proper rubber band. As a matter of fact, here's something else you can do. Get yourself a light tension rubber band that's very small. That way you can go in there and it will barely hold the microphone. Once it barely holds the microphone, then if you put a microphone on there that requires more weight, like for example, if it's not weighted properly, if you have yourself a shock mount holding a microphone like this with weight, let's say on here from a wind protection, like a softy or something like that, it's going to weigh it down more like this if there's even tension on the two sides like this. Ideally, what you would want to do is connect up your XLR on this side and then put your finger under it to find where that balance point is between the weight on the front, like the windscreen, and the weight on the back, which is the cable. And once you find that center point, you grab that and put that centered between the two suspensions right over here. You probably are not going to have an issue, be able to do that if you use something like this because it's going to be weighted weirdly. But that is ideally the way you would want to do it on something like this, unless you added an extra band or two to the leading side or the side that had more weight on it. You can do that if you use something like this and you use extra rubber bands, because if you put only like one rubber band on there and it was barely holding the microphone was vibrating and shaking around the inside, add another band on there and you're probably going to get proper tension. I've talked too long. Let's see what he has to say.
Here off a microphone stand, so we'll be...
That shock mount, if I were to guess, there's going to be some sort of a problem with handling noise.
Something to power this microphone because it is a phantom power microphone only. So I am going with the Ceramonic small rig.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the Ceramonic small rig, but what I will say is that it's probably going to be, it could be noisy depending on the system that you connect it up to. It could have additional noise on the preamps. It could also be something that in order to supply that, it's going to be internal. It's got to have an internal battery. I mean, no way around it. I mean, what are you going to do? Supply an external battery power or an external phantom power to this thing from some sort of an external source just so it can supply to? No, you would at that point not even have the box. You just run a cable straight to it. So what you want to do is be aware that anything you add like that is going to add potentially a lot of weight to the end of your boom pole. So, I mean, I guess there's a reason he chose the small rig. We'll see what it is.
Keep in mind, you're going to be manipulating your audio in post and working on your audio in post. About this is
he's also got a strap on there.
So preamp, an on-off switch for the preamp.
And because of the short cable, he's probably going to be putting his transmitter on that someplace. That way it's all in a contained unit.
A physical knob and a headphone jack.
That kind of it's starting to make sense to me. He's got
this piece of
an internally coiled cable boom, which is going to take the signal from the microphone down to the butt end of it where that extra weight's going to be.
This is called. I'll leave all the parts in the links below. But this is basically just going to amplify the signal that comes out of here. I found out for some reason that when...
I don't know how a cable is going to amplify the signal. Maybe it tricks the Ceramonic into outputting at a higher level? I don't know how that little cable is going to amplify.
Rode Wireless Go is plugged into this. The signal's a little bit weak, so you are going to have to amplify it with this.
There's no amplifier on there, though.
You're going to need this XLR. This is a male to female.
Okay, so it's basically the same thing as a cable, but it's just connectors. So usually if you use something like that, it's because you have something that's a recessed or there's a place that you can't really necessarily get to put your fingers in there to release an XLR. So this gives you an extra little bit to stick out so that way you can easily access whatever it is that you're plugging up your XLR to. So I don't know what he's using that for, but we'll see.
So we're going to need that. And you're going to need some ties here to tie up loose wires and things like that.
Okay, that's good.
Let's talk about boom poles. Now, while we could go with the boom pole from the company that shall not be named, you've seen this in many...
It's probably newer because it's got gold on it and
like the fact
it's got foam.
It's like the fact that all you have to do is give it a little twist and it opens very...
yeah, that doesn't sound great.
Aluminum.
Yeah. Well, so is your K-Tech made of aluminum.
Than anything else.
Tripod leg. He mentioned tripod leg. That's right.
From the people who boom from me that this is super heavy. So we're going to be going...
Aluminum poles are going to be heavier than the carbon fiber poles. And the one that he has there is also aluminum. This is aluminum
This is
K-Tech.
the K-Tech Avalon KE 110. This thing is fantastic. Now, first,
It's also
it's about the same weight as that, maybe a little bit.
because it's aluminum.
It is very, very nice.
The thing about a K-Tech boom, though, is even if you get something like a more discount Avalon pole, it is still designed by people that make boom poles. So they're going to take all their knowledge and that they put into the K-Tech Classic and the Mighty Boom series, and they're going to make it into a more inexpensive package without as much versatility. Like it's not modular like the Mighty Boom series is. So it's going to basically be a self-contained system where once it's cabled for a certain configuration, you can't really change it up. This is internally coiled cabled, so you can't change it up to make it internally straight. You could remove the cable altogether, and then you're still going to have the exit XLR address on the bottom, XLR exit on the bottom. But hey, it is what it is, because when you buy it for configuration, you're buying it for a particular configuration and purpose.
It is a nice aluminum here. Really love it. But one of the things I love about this is that there is a coiled cable inside. So when I extend this,
there's less cable management you have to deal with. The cable itself is going through the cable, through the boom pole itself, and it's a closed system, meaning that if you put it on the ground, there's not going to be dirt and dust and that kind of stuff that's going to get on the ground and get pulled into your boom. If you have a straight cable, then you have to have an exit for that straight cable to leave the boom pole. That's going to allow dirt on the inside there, especially when you put it near the bottom 6 inches of the ground. That's where a lot of the dust on the ground happens to move around. So that dirt and dust and stuff would go straight into your boom pole. Plus it gets on the cable itself. And then as you pull it through the boom, it's going to suck all that dirt and dust and stuff into your boom, meaning that it's going to gunk up over time. So that's something to be aware of.
I can lock this off.
Not going to have that issue as much on a internally coiled cable boom, though.
Coil up inside, and I'm not going to have to wind a whole bunch of cable. So I really
no. But what you do need to be careful of is that you if you don't manage your cable correctly, it's going to twist and twist and twist up, and the XLR coiled cable is going to potentially tighten or over loosen over time. If it overly tightens, it's going to start to damage the cable on the inside, and it's going to overstretch it. If it gets overly loose, and it's going to be like an old telephone cable, and it could end up overly loosening and then throwing loops over itself, and then it's not going to close properly. There's issues that you have to just be aware of with whatever kind of cable configuration you have.
The fact that it does have the connection on the side here. Now, there are some that have the connection on the bottom, but with that, you run the risk of accidentally slamming down your boom pole or dropping it and destroying your recorder or your transmitter. So
that is a good point. One thing I would point out, though, is if you have a side side exit like he does on this boom pole, you can't just still drop it down, because it's going to put a lot of tension from the weight of the transmitter and whatever onto those connections. On that note here, usually the biggest point of failure you're going to run into on something like that is going to be on the boom pole itself right there, or on the transmitter or whatever you're connecting up to it. That right there, that connection is going to be where the biggest point of failure is, especially if you just drop down your boom pole a lot, and because it's just a lot of weight that's going on that one little connection, and all it's being held on with is the lock of an XLR.
Highly recommend getting something on the side. There's just a lot of benefits to having it on the side. Now, you will need a pair of gloves with this pole, because there is no there's no foam on it. So
okay, this is what I was talking about before. Most of the time people talk about handling noise.
Gloves.
And he's talking about needing gloves or something like that with this boom pole, and that's simply because the shock mount is ineffective. It's plain and simple. Whenever someone starts talking about how ineffective a boom pole is at handling noise, that usually is a big indicator that your shock mount is not good. So if he were to replace the shock mount, or at least replace the suspension, the rubber bands on it, it's probably going to perform so much better, to the point where, I've used the graphite and the aluminum Avalon poles before. I've never had an issue with handling noise because I use a proper shock mount. So if he used a proper shock mount, he'd probably not have issues too.
And build the system. First off, we'll start with the mount. We will go ahead and screw this on, like so.
Okay.
And next we're going to add our microphone in here.
Okay, you can kind of see as he's putting it in there, the little rubber bands itself there are very, very taut. There's a lot of tension under them. And think of it like a guitar string. The more tension there is, it's going to make a sound, right? It makes that sound. Well, he's pushing it through 1, 2, 3, 4 little guitar strings on this side and on the other side, so a total of 8. So the more tension you have on that, and the microphone could potentially move around, that's going to be like 8 times as much potential vibration going into the microphone. So replace these bands, and you're going to probably have a much better response to absorbing handling noise.
Slide that through the shock mount like so. And we're going to go ahead and plug this in.
Be aware of your cable management there.
Sheet this a little bit through here and use a little bit of the back of the plug here because this microphone is very, very, very short.
Okay, just it has to do with weight and how it balances. That's the big thing to note.
If I was using like a Sen.
Okay, one thing I'd also note is you see the K-Tech knot here. The cable is coming out of this side, going all the way around to the back of the boom pole itself. That means it's basically spiraling around. If you can, this is even tension on this. What I would do is go straight out of this side and straight into the microphone. So reverse the microphone around 180 degrees, which would require unplugging it and plugging it back in. That way it's not spiraling around the outside of the boom pole. It just comes straight out and straight back in. These K-Tech cables, they're designed, they have a little more tension to them. So it'll absorb some of your handling noise and not really, hit and slap the side, but just be aware of that. It's going to be another point of potential failure if this cable ever ends up touching the side of your boom pole. It's not really going to be an issue with this though.
Sennheiser transmitter or a DD-HDTX, I would plug it in at the top. I would get all my weight up top and just boom it like this.
No, that's the wrong way to think about that. If you have a heavier transmitter, you're going to put it on the microphone end. No, if you have a lighter transmitter, you put it on the end. That would be like when you use the Rode system that he's talking about. You put the transmitter on this end, you put the DAD, a heavy, cube, you put that on the opposite end. That way it counterbalances the weight. So he's wrong on that one.
Yes, but there's a reason why I'm going to put everything on the bottom, and I'll show you in a moment.
It's probably the Saramonic.
We take the
Saramonic Phantom supply box is going to be extremely heavy. So that he's doing exactly what, as I just got through talking about. He's going to put his transmitter, and because it requires phantom power, he's going to put the transmitter on, kind of stuck to that Saramonic Phantom supply box. And because he's doing that, he's going to put all of that big weight, that cube, he's going to put it on the butt end of the boom pole, so that way it's counterweighting
nice and tight
everything on the end. But it's kind of defeats the purpose in having a light transmitter if you put it on the
everything is nice and tight.
If you put it onto something heavy,
anything that's going to rattle is going to transfer noise up through the pole and into your mic and into your recording. So
yeah, so to his point right there, if there's any rattle or something like that, if you don't put it properly mounted to your boom pole, you're going to have all kinds of potential noise and stuff like that going straight down through the microphone. But it's going to be better if you have a proper shock mount.
Amplifying wire, plug that in.
Amplifying wire. How does an amplifying wire work?
Next, we'll take our XLR.
I wonder if it changes it from mic to phantom power or something.
We're going to attach that to the bottom of the boom pole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be aware. There's 2 points of failure because you used that little adapter. That means that it could fail over here, or it could also do the same thing on the boom pole or on the Saramonic. So there's 4 connections that could potentially go out. So if you're not careful, this is a lot of side weight on that XLR exit. So be aware that if you start to run into any noise, if it starts to click, if it starts to pop, if it starts to make any kind of a snow fitting, fuzzing sound, there's potentially a point of failure right there between this Saramonic, its connector, that adapter on either end, or on the boom pole itself that you got to be aware of.
Now we'll take some of these.
That's going to be probably where I look first if there's any kind of a noise.
So they're not hitting the boom pole and transferring sound all throughout the boom pole.
Okay, so he's taking up some of the cable
now you can
potential noise, which is good.
Twisty ties, bongo ties.
Okay, one thing I would say is you see this little, this whole weight right there from his connection. I would actually secure that, and twist tie that down, because that's going to be the big thing that if it ends up hitting the side of the boom, that's going to make more noise than the actual cable would. Granted, you'd still want to pull it taut, so that way this cable here, like you're not going to really have an issue there. But if any of these cables are loose over there, it's going to flap against the side of the boom pole, potentially make noise if you do any kind of rapid movements. There is no harm in adding a slight twist to the cable so it like gently corkscrews around the boom. After all, if you look at a lot of these boom poles that are externally wrapped, you'll see a cable corkscrewing around the boom. Personally, to me, I hate that configuration. It looks extremely sloppy to me. And plus, it adds a lot more of management that you have to do in your hands. If your hand slips, you want to slide your hand at all, then you have to manage the whole cable and you have to pull it. It's a beast. You have to deal with it. I know you deal with it, every single day. You develop techniques to it. I still don't like it. It looks very sloppy to me. In the 2020s and beyond, it's not necessary. You got great transmitters. Just put one of those things on your boom pole and don't worry about your cable management anymore. But just be aware of that if you have any kind of a cable that's wrapped around any device that's connected up to basically a boom pole here, you're going to potentially have noise if you don't twist tie it or secure it properly down.
Give it a little shake to make sure that there's nothing going to be flopping.
If you hear any rattles, it's going to make it all the way through to your microphone.
Your wireless boom pole system is set up. All you have to do is plug this into your camera. Make sure you're recording a backup track and getting the transmission.
There you go. He's talking about the backup recorder
so with wireless
ability
too,
there.
not only
Normally, if I have a counterweight like this on there, I would put it flopping down. So I'd have all that weight handling down. The microphone was also going to be handling facing downwards, as opposed to out or up on the transmitter. That way that it's all using, if I just rested on my fingers, gravity's going to do the work and hold the microphone in the proper position for me.
I saw him hook up a Rode go to a headphone.
I think he just said XLR video shooter.
I saw him use
listen again.
wireless headphones. I've seen over a DSLR video shooter. I saw him hook up a Rode wireless go to a headphone. Do not do this.
Oh, look at you. He's saying don't do that. So this is the same thing as what I said when I watched Caleb's video. I wonder what his reasoning is for that.
And the delay is so terrible that you can definitely miss things. So
I thought that the delay on the Rode system was very slight, like only a few milliseconds. And you can miss things. What would you miss? I mean, a few milliseconds. Even the Deity system that had 40 milliseconds, you hear an obvious delay and it's distracting, but you're not going to really miss anything. I don't know what that means. The bigger thing that I would note on that is that when you take up your cables and you put everything on your headphones, I understood by the end of Caleb's video why he did that. Still not a fan of that system, especially in the pro world, but I mean, it serves his purpose, so you can't really poo-poo it too much if he likes it. But
so I highly recommend not using any kind of wireless headphone system. Go ahead and get yourself a decent pair of monitoring headphones. I'm just using these because I have these right here.
Okay.
And that is why I picked this small rig here.
Okay. So that's what he's doing. Is he's plugging straight into the small rig, so that way there's no delay. Here's the thing, though. On pro systems, you have a boom pole that is wireless and you have a boom operator that's handling it wirelessly too. We're not listening directly to the transmitter. We're listening to a feed that comes from the mixer, which is, of course, wireless. So we still use wireless systems in the pro world. It's just very low latency and it's high fidelity. So that is the disadvantage of using something that's more discount like this Rode system or anything that's got a delay on it. But pros use wireless systems to monitor. I mean, I do every single day when I'm on set. I don't think the last time I used any kind of a hardline system that allowed me to listen to was when I was using the the Boombox 2 from Remote Audio with an 8-pin duplex cable that was going back. And I think it's been almost, what's it been, 8 years since I used that system? It's been a long time. I have used wireless boom ever since. If I have to do anything different, it's going to be an XLR cable that goes up to my boom pole if we're trying to defeat some RF. And then I have my IFB system is still transmitted to my belt using an R1A, R1B, whatever it happens to be, whatever the wireless feed is that I'm being sent for an IFB feed. So it's still a wireless system. So what he said there, I don't entirely agree with. You're going to monitor it wirelessly. If you have a wireless boom, you don't want to end up hardlining your headphone feed.
Headphone jack right here. And that's it. That is your wireless system.
Just be aware that if you have a cable that hangs down like this, it's a very short cable. That means that you're going to have to manage your cable too. So if you end up holding your boom in any kind of a way, that little cable there is going to potentially hit your hand. If you end up stretching out, pulling it back, it's going to maybe go taut, pull your headphones off. That cable right there, more likely what's going to happen is it's going to slap against the side of the boom pole, potentially make noise. So if you point the transmitter, like right now he's got it off to the side, point it downwards. That way it's the cable comes straight out of the bottom and it goes right into your headphones. Less for you to deal with.
This is not going to hit your pole. So
he just addressed slapping on the boom pole itself.
Want it, but
still point it downwards, dude.
My wireless setup. Now,
He needs to point it downwards. That way, you see the cable, it's coming out of this end and going around.
and
It should just go straight down, and that way there's never going to be, it couldn't potentially slap there.
too loud, I can go right here and I can turn it up and down.
Oh,
And that's really why I put everything here and not up top. It just gives me a little bit more control.
Okay.
And I can monitor this better.
so that does make sense as to why he's doing it that way to a degree. The big thing I would note there is that if you have the boom pole extended out and you suddenly have to remove your counterweighting hand to have to make an adjustment, that means you're basically removing your counterweight and the whole end of the boom pole is going to go down. So if you're trying to make a microphone adjustment, you're distracted and you got to be careful not to hit the talent with the microphone. So be aware of that.
So that's it. That is my wireless boom pole system. Those are my thoughts, but I want to know yours.
You know mine now. So it's not a terrible system at all. It's going to work for a lot of smaller projects and, content creation, that kind of thing. So if the system works for you, then it works for you. I mean, that's the big thing, is to make a system that works for you. And in a pro world, I would never do some of the stuff that he just did in this video, but it's not terrible. I thought it was pretty funny that he addressed me and said, sound speeds. But at the same time, it's like kind of cool. So anyway, thanks for watching this episode of Sound Speeds, and be sure to tune in the future for more reaction videos, more whatever I happen to bring to you, and as always, sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.